The movie begins in a lavish restaurant where a man orders a large amount of food. After devouring all of it, he takes out a fly from his secret ring, dips it into his hot chocolate, and places it on the table. He then calls the staff and points at the dead fly on the table. The staff members immediately apologize for the incident, but the man starts berating them in front of everyone as if he is the victim of bad service. Worried about the goodwill of the restaurant, the manager steps in and lets the man walk away without paying for anything. Here we get to know that the man's name is Clóvis. He is a professional con artist and has never spent money on food, clothes, or even shelter. On another occasion, he, along with his stepsister Lohane, heads to a fancy clothing store. Clóvis orders his sister to go to the changing room and tuck in as many clothes as she can under her shirt. Then he places one of the clothes into a customer's bag. After a while, Lohane comes out and tells the storekeeper that she didn't like any clothes and that she will be leaving. However, there is one last problem. There is a tag in the clothes, and if anyone passes through the door without paying, the alarm starts blaring. This is where Clóvis's idea comes in. As soon as the customer tries exiting the door, the sirens go off, and the storekeeper stops her. Taking this as the perfect opportunity, Clóvis and his sister make a run for it while the alarm is still blaring. In this way, the duo manages to get free clothes. Let's not pretend this movie isn't giving us all ideas right now. Getting a free shelter is even easier for Clóvis. Firstly, he and Lohane pick the best hotel in the city, which has all the amenities one could ask for. He then approaches the receptionist and provides a check, mentioning that he has just deposited the sum, but since it's a Saturday, the money will only get credited on Monday. The receptionist tries to argue that it won't be possible to give them a room without first receiving the money, but Clóvis starts blabbering about his rights and finally convinces him. This way, although he's rich himself, he never needs to pay for anything. But it was not always this way. When he was a kid, Clóvis lived in a small Brazilian city with his parents. He aspired to be a famous painter one day, but his dreams hit a roadblock when his parents got separated. He then started living with his father and rich mother-in-law, but after just 1 year, his father became bored and left. After this, Clóvis lived with his rich mother-in-law and her new husband, but once again, just after 6 months, the rich mother-in-law became tired and filed for divorce. In this way, Clóvis changed several families during his teenage years, and in one such family, he meets his stepsister, Lohane, with whom he gets along very well. Hey, get your minds out of the gutter. Cut to 15 years later, Clóvis has moved away from his family and is now living all by himself in Rio de Janeiro. He has continued his passion for painting, but just in a different way. He paints realistic replicas of famous paintings and sells them to a corrupt senator, who in turn sells them at 10 times the price. Because of all the illicit dealings, Clóvis has become a vigorous speaker and has the ability to convince anyone with his speech. He has also become a con artist and deceives people every chance he gets. However, he has one code which he always follows. He only cheats the rich. In the next scene, Clóvis meets his friend Tavino and informs him that he is going to pull off the biggest deception of his life. He then takes out some documents and reveals that he is going to sell the iconic Christ the Redeemer statue of Rio de Janeiro. Expectedly, Tavino laughs at the idea, as it is virtually impossible to sell a government property. However, when Clóvis elaborates his plan in detail, he is bound to believe it. According to the plan, Clóvis will pose as a government real estate agent, who will then have all the necessary permissions, blueprints, and the valuations of the site. Furthermore, Clóvis has even created a fake website with all the details for the deal. The first step is to contact a corrupt businessman who is looking to buy a piece of history for himself at a very low price. The final step is to convince him that the deal is real, and that's where Clóvis's convincing skills come in. He will mention that the government is looking to offload the structure, as they want to build something more productive on the spot. Tavino is stunned to hear all this, but he lends his car to Clóvis and wishes him all the best. The next day, Clóvis contacts some businessmen and sets up the meeting at a very crowded beach. Surprisingly, the men buy into the story and they agree to the deal. With this, Clóvis is handed a large briefcase which contains millions of Brazilian reals. Elated, he dances his way to Tavino's garage and gives him his share of the money. Even at home, Clóvis cannot stop dancing, and he sleeps with all the money scattered across his bed. However, his excitement doesn't last long, as the next morning, the selling of Christ the Redeemer is all over the news. The police have even made a sketch of him, calling him a fraudster. Scared, Clóvis immediately heads to Divino's garage, but instead of asking for help, he just steals a car. However, when he returns home to retrieve the money, he finds that the senator has tracked his location and informed the cops about it. Furthermore, all his money is gone. As Clóvis calculates the severity of the situation, police sirens are heard in the background. Hence, he packs his remaining belongings and immediately makes a run for it. Just as he is about to escape, he runs into a woman who turns out to be none other than his estranged stepsister, Lohane. Clóvis starts complaining that it is the wrong time for her to show up, as he is having a very bad day, but Lohane mentions that her day was even worse. Following this, the movie cuts back 2 days, where Lohane is selling burgers in her trailer. Although the money isn't much, she works really hard, as she wants to provide the best burgers in town. Sadly, one day, 2 officers show up and ask Lohane for her business registration papers. When she mentions that she doesn't have them, the officers threaten to take her trailer away. Lohane pleads with them to let her be, but the officers just won't listen. Left with no other options, she bribes them with her entire savings for the month and sends them away. However, the very next day, 2 separate officers approach her and ask for the papers. When Lohane tells them that she has already sorted the issue with their colleagues, the officers reveal that they have no colleagues. Hearing this, Lohane realizes that she has been conned. To make matters worse, the officers take her trailer away, leaving her broke and alone. Hence, with nowhere to go, she decides to meet the only family member she has, Clóvis. Back in the present, Clóvis urges Lohane to get in and speeds away from the place without any explanation. For the next few hours, Lohane tries to initiate a conversation, but Clóvis remains silent. Finally, he stops at a secluded place and finally reveals that the police are after him. He then takes her to a hotel and produces yet another masterclass to get them free entry. Later, they head to the fanciest store in town and get some clothes for themselves, using their usual strategy. Following this, Clóvis starts plotting to rob a bank. For this, he surveys the beach area with his binoculars and spots a travel company where a rich lady is talking to a salesgirl. Clóvis knows that all the travel companies in the area only trade in checks, so he sends Lohane to capture a photo of the rich lady's check so that he can forge it. At first, Lohane refuses, claiming that it's too risky, but when Clóvis promises to get her trailer back, she agrees. In the next scene, Lohane enters the store and strikes an awkward conversation with the salesgirl. When the rich woman whips out her check, Lohane pretends to take a selfie and captures the signature. She then makes up an excuse and heads outside. After a while, when the rich woman has left, Clóvis enters the store, pretending to be the rich lady's assistant. He mentions that the last check has become obsolete due to some reason, so his mistress has sent him with another one. In reality, the new check is a forged one, which belongs to a fake bank account. Surprisingly, the salesgirl buys the deception and returns him the previous check without any question. After this, Clóvis heads to the bank and retrieves the large sum, claiming that he is the account holder's son. With enough money to keep them afloat for months, Clóvis and Lohane decide to celebrate that night. However, they are spotted by the same salesgirl who they had deceived in the day. Normally, Clóvis always has a plan to get out of tough situations, but this time, he simply suggests that Lohane run, which she does. After a while, the duo arrives at their hotel, gathers their belongings, and sets off in their car to another city. The next morning, Lohane and Clóvis stop at a garage, where Clóvis buys a vehicle for his sister, as promised. However, Lohane is not happy because she is getting a combi instead of a trailer, which is what she had requested. Still, she accepts it, and the two once again part ways, with Clóvis taking all of the money. After just a few minutes, Lohane starts missing her brother and follows him. She tells him that she won't let him go unless he provides her with a trailer. Enraged, Clóvis steps on the gas pedal and tries to leave Lohane behind, but ends up blowing his car's engine. With no options left, he is forced to join Lohane in her combi. Later, as the bro-sis duo drive through the countryside, they start reminiscing about their childhood, and they have a good time. They even sing some songs passionately, and as a result, Lohane gets distracted and crashes into an oncoming poultry truck. That's one game of chicken she shouldn't have played. The duo survives the crash with no injuries. However, they are forced to flee without their money as the police arrive at the scene almost immediately. At night, the tension in the air gets too much as the two start arguing, blaming one another for the situation. Just then, Lohane turns on the radio, and a news broadcast reveals that the authorities are on the hunt for 2 con artists who have scammed several people across the city. Because of this, Lohane and Clóvis are forced to stay inside their vehicle, hungover hungry. However, being the smart guy that he is, Clóvis quickly comes up with a plan to escape the city. The next morning, they head to the local airport disguised as doctors and pretend that they are delivering a live heart to another city. Expectedly, the airport staff stops them, claiming that they need to have reservations first. But when Clóvis mentions that the heart is required for a VIP transplant, he agrees. With this, the two board the flight and con their way to another city, Sao Paulo. After they arrive at the airport, Lohane goes to the bathroom to freshen up, leaving Clóvis alone. Unfortunately, some officers recognize him and immediately arrest him. They then escort him away from the place, leaving Lohane behind. In the next scene, Clóvis is brought to the police station and interrogated by the head commissioner, Ricardo. Ricardo tells Clóvis that he will be behind bars for at least 20 years, but the latter still has an ace up his sleeve. He tells the commissioner that he knows a great deal about other criminals, and if given the chance, he will agree to a plea bargain. Hearing this, Ricardo remembers that he needs a promotion and accepts the deal. With this, Clóvis starts revealing about the senator and his ugly money laundering business. He even suggests a plan to catch the senator red-handed. The next day, Ricardo brings Clóvis to his temporary house, where he can stay for a week and execute the plan. However, he has to wear an ankle bracelet so that he can't run away again. After Ricardo leaves, Clóvis calls Lohane and learns that she has thrived in Sao Paulo using his con techniques. He doesn't tell her that he is under custody and instead asks her to accompany him in one last heist. Lohane is skeptical as she doesn't want to get into trouble, but Clóvis eventually persuades her by promising to provide her with half of the heist money. In the evening, the two meet at Clóvis's apartment and start discussing the plan. First of all, Clóvis reveals his entire history about how he used counterfeit paintings and sell them to the senator. He then tells Lohane that she has to do exactly the same, become a broker. Clóvis himself will forge a famous painting, and when it's ready, Lohane will have to contact the senator and sell it at a good price. Although Lohane is scared, she agrees, as she is in dire need of money. With this, the two start their preparations. Clóvis begins painting a famous piece, while Lohane practices her communication skills. A few days later, the painting is finally ready, and Clóvis even manages to contact the senator's assistant, Roberto, for the deal. Soon, the call arrives, and Lohane picks it up. Hesitantly. Despite being nervous, she negotiates brilliantly and closes the deal at 50 grand. The next day, she meets up with Roberto at a cemetery and exchanges the painting for the money while Clóvis is guiding her through a walkie-talkie. After the successful mission, the two head to a bar at night and sing their hearts out. Now, Clóvis has all the money he wants, but there is still one thing he lacks: freedom. Hence, in order to achieve it, he has to get the senator behind bars. In the next scene, an auction is taking place in the city, where a lot of rich people, including the senator and his assistant, are present. Among the crowd, Ricardo is also seated as an undercover, while Clóvis is disguised as a waiter. Soon, the auction begins, and Clóvis's painting is put up for sale. Surprisingly, the senator's assistant, Roberto, bids the highest and buys the painting for himself. Here we get to know that the senator is using the paintings to convert his illegal cash into white money, as auctions don't require sources of funds. Right then, Clóvis steps forward with another replica of the painting and reveals to everyone that both copies are fake. He also mentions that the senator is a fraud who cheats people for his own good. Taking this as the perfect opportunity, Ricardo also rises from his seat and tries to interrogate the senator. However, the old man uses his power and influence to simply brush off Ricardo. Because of this, the plan fails, and Ricardo is left with no choice but to take Clóvis in. The movie then fast forwards 18 months, where Clóvis is released from the prison. He narrates that Brazil's law is so weak that he was let out after just 18 months, despite his original sentence being 20 years. Outside, he is greeted by Lohane, and the two have an emotional reunion. In the last scene of the movie, the brother-sister duo has finally left their criminal lives behind, and they have used the money to start a food stall. A lot of customers are present, which implies that their business is booming. The movie ends as the two promise to be together for the rest of their lives. Sus. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.